hearing this quote for a long time, but until recently, I never really understood what he actually mean by that. And now I have started understanding, and that is a part of these people's greatness, right? Like what they say, it takes years for us, people like us, to even understand. I told her that this is exactly what I want, and she exactly gave us this. And it was a pretty simple, pretty neat design. And believe it or not, app was doing really well when the design was this. And that's kind of, a fun part. Like app was doing fantastic. The points that we missed was the navigation, like multiple stories, and then finally you get the story. So essentially, to come to a story, we added like 1, 2, 3, 4 clicks, to get the same thing, which in the previous app was getting in 1 click. Surprisingly, the adoption tanked and numbers were going really south. And we were quick to realize what happened. But the part of the I wouldn't say frustration, but the part of the process of building this software is, how much time it took for us to revert from that.
Welcome to our channel, The Making of Kushmanda Tech. In previous video, we have seen various layers of app building. And in today's video, we are going to deep dive into UI UX. Welcome, Amrish. Can you give us an overview of UI UX layer?
Thanks, Shanaz. Thanks for inviting. Yeah, so UI UX is a fun area. So let's dive into it. I have got some slides with me. Do you want me to share the slides, or do you want to just talk first, or how do you want to drive that?
Yeah, just give us an overview and then we can run through the slides.
Sure, that works perfectly well. So the UI, for me personally, to be honest with you, Shan, the UI UX was one of the toughest area, initially at least, to get into, because I have no background of it, and that's a part of it. That's a part of when you're starting or building a SaaS app. The background that you have, that's your strong hold. Like for example, if you're come from a design background or art background, then UI UX is going to be your strength, and then you're going to struggle a bit on engineering side because you don't know much about it. In my case, engineering is my background, so I knew a little bit about it, but I didn't know anything, quite frankly, about UI UX. So I struggled a lot initially to get into this domain, but I think with over time and with the type of the people and the quality of people we have, we made a lot of progress to get into it. Let me do this. Let me start sharing my screen. And
but let me tell you, Amrish, like whatever must have been the challenge, I found the UI of the bedtime story very nice.
Thank you. Thanks. Well, actually, there is a story about that. Do you want us to go through that one?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, let's go through that. So the bedtime story is actually, that was one of the things which I thought of, covering today in today's session, the story of Wiki Bedtime Stories, which is a huge learning, and I think it's going to help a lot of our viewers, hopefully, if they listen to it and if they understand what we're trying to talk through here. So let me move this here. Yep. Okay, so Wiki Bedtime Stories, that was, like we all know, the first app that we built. And initially we just hired a very smart girl. She was a freelancer, and we just requested her work. So initially the way it was working is, I would kind of put together, now what I understand, what they call is low fidelity design. And in my language, what I would call, or in our language, what we'll call engineering design. So I would put that, and then I would request the UX designers to, convert it into a better looking, artistically, design. So I told her that this is exactly what I want, and she exactly gave us this. And it was a pretty simple, pretty neat design. And believe it or not, app was doing really well when the design was this. And that's kind of, a fun part. Like app was doing fantastic. We had like a very steady growth in terms of downloads. So downloads were growing on the Google Play. And of course, at that time, we didn't had any ads or anything. So there was no monetization, not even a question of monetization. So we don't know how that was working, but just the downloads, right? The downloads was doing pretty well. Then what happened was we got a little bit, sorry, I went ahead of myself. Yeah. So then, we said, okay, now version 1 is done. We need to go to version 2. And we started, putting together more like the team internally, and they're all fantastic guys, and they came up with this design where we say, look, we have to add a lot more sophisticated and professional looking app, which it became. But the points that we missed was the navigation. In the previous app, right? Like I was showing you, this was app. That's it. So you go onto the app, and this is the first screen. You click on a story, and here is a story. You read it, and you're done. It was straight to the point. Versus here, this was an app. You get an option to continue as a guest, or you get an option to log in with an email, and then you go here, and then this screen was kind of much better looking, but people were not finding it exactly, where to click on it. And if they click on any of this, then they get this. And then when they click on that, you get multiple stories, and then finally you get the story. So essentially, to come to a story, we added like 1, 2, 3, 4 clicks, to get the same thing, which in the previous app was getting in 1 click. And now, not so surprisingly, and back then quite surprisingly, the adoption tanked, and numbers were going really south. And it was not, we were quick to realize what happened. But the part of the I wouldn't say frustration, but the part of the process of building this software is, how much time it took for us to revert from that and go back to more. Again, you can't go back to version 1, because you have to make some progress, right, in every release. So we went to the third version, which is kind of here, where we tried to take the better look of the second version and then the simplicity of the first version. And then we are trying to put this one. So this, in fact, went live a couple of weeks ago. So if you have a Google, Google phone, like a Google Play on your Android phone, please feel free to download it and check it, and let us know if you think, something is still not up to mark, or if there can be some improvement. So how this one will work, the time will come. The time that is coming will tell us how the adoption of this app goes. But to me personally, the biggest lesson was that the simplicity wins 100x, or I don't know what x, but so much over the sophistication. The simplicity of design is one of the big lessons that we learned in a hard way. And like we always say, the part of the reason of this whole video is to make sure that you guys don't do the mistakes that we are doing. So please don't do that mistake if you are building some serious software. Keep simplicity in mind.
Right.
Does that answer your question, Sean?
Yeah, the user wants to first experience it, and then if he likes, then he may want to register. But yeah, at the get-go,
exactly.
Multiple
Oh,
screens.
absolutely.
What is the process of building UI UX?
Well, that's a very good question. And we have, been maturing on our own process for quite a bit. And, there is probably, the way I understand it now is there are best practices, and, there are certain things that work. But I can share with you what we are doing currently and the process that is working pretty well for us. So let me share my screen and, show you what is going on right now, what process we are following. So if you're able to see my screen, let me know if you're able to see my screen.
Yeah.
Perfect. So what we're doing right now, I can show you. So we have, this in a building of app, there is this concept called discovery process, and there can be a whole different video on that itself, how that works and how that should work and whatnot. But essentially, it comes down to, okay, what you need to do, right? So that's kind of what features you're adding, or what is it that you're going to do. Once that happens, what we do currently is I have to build this so-called engineering design, which is, a not so good looking, but a basic, you can call it like, the handwritten design, like, or hand-drawn, not written, hand-drawn design of how things work in our language, in the engineer language. And that is a very, very important step. And I have done this mistake multiple times of not doing that design in the first place. And what happens because of that is that if you don't do that well, and if you don't do that at all, the UX designers are gonna get confused, first of all, on what they are supposed to do. And the second thing is they will do something, but it may not be practical or it may not be feasible to do it engineering standpoint, or from the technology standpoint. And that becomes very frustrating because then they're going to do it, and then you're going to tell them, oh, this cannot be done. So then what can be done? And then it's between the engineering and the UI UX, there is not a sync up. So it all starts with and it doesn't matter. You can sometimes you can start with the engineering design, or you can start with the UX design and then go to engineering design. But these iterations between what can be done and how it should be done, the way I look at it. So so is very important, and I think it's very, very important for you as a, as a whatever you want to call it, but to give that freedom to UX designers to completely redesign your work. So in engineering design, all you are telling them is what can be done or what technology can give, and then it's really their job and their skill, honestly, to convert that what can be done into how to solve the user problems. Okay, so it's a big art, and those guys, like, I mean, I really, really enjoy to work with UX designers, quite frankly, because in terms of the degree of creativity, those guys are ahead of engineers. And this is a big statement, but I think so. I mean, I personally believe that those are the UX designers. They definitely have the next level of creativity, and they definitely are many times the better problem solvers. They are more evolved in the in the spectrum of how to solve the problems. It's kind of difficult to explain. I'm not trying to compare like engineers versus artists, and I don't want to get into that debate. But to me personally, because I come from engineering background, I like artists more, or not. I wouldn't say that I like it more, but what I'm trying to say is, I wish I was an artist, right? Because they have a very different way of looking at things, and I really appreciate that a lot. But you have to make sure, and that is the art. That is a big art of making sure that they have the full freedom to do whatever they want to do, but at the same time you have to support them in telling what can be done. And unless you do both of these things exactly well, you're going to either lose a lot of time, or you're going to frustrate the user, frustrate the UX people and the engineering team, and both. So that is what we have learned so far. That's the process that works best to answer your question. Like, identify the problem to solve, build an engineering design, and then have them build the UX redesign. Let the UX guys redesign your solution, and then that's whatever comes out of that has been so far the best designs that we have been able to come up with.
Okay, yeah, I totally agree, Amrish. So even like the story of Airbnb, most of the time, if you see all the applications that are globally so popular, they are mostly by engineers. But for Airbnb, the 3 CEOs, they are all from design background.
Oh, yeah.
And there were various apps that were already present in the market to rent your properties, but the way the design was done for Airbnb, it is just so awesome, right? The first time you go, you just love the design. It's the ease of use, and also the practical use. Like, you have a map on the side, it shows where the property is, and then it also gives you the price. So yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, so they may be two different pillars, but they work in tandem.
Oh, absolutely. They're almost like like the left brain, right brain, right? And you have to work when both work together, that's where the magic happens. I mean, that is literally the case. When engineering and artists, when the point at which they meet, that's the innovation point. That is one of the biggest innovation point. I have prepared another slide as well, specifically to design. Like, now when I look back at us on how we progressed in the design, right? So one of the way to look at it, like I shown you for the Wiki Bedtime Stories, right? So the initial design that we had, I would call it like a graphics design, where you have already the, you already have the content. All you're doing is you're just making it look nice, right? And that is the graphic, and there's nothing right or wrong about it. That's just one of the level of the maturity, I would call, or that's one of the way things work. The UX designers, what we do now is, there are people on our team who basically reconfigure the thing from a user standpoint. So that's a whole different skill set. So in a graphics design, you essentially are taking an engineering design and making it look good, and that's it, right? In a UX design, you're taking an engineering design, understanding what engineering can give me, and then remodeling it to solve the business problem or to solve the user's problem. So that is the UX design level. And then the third level, which is a whole different level, which is a rebel UX design, which is where we are aspiring to go, which we want to go. And honestly, right now, nothing which is in production is at a rebel level, but the couple of things that we are working on right now are totally rebel UX designs. What I mean by rebellious design is that the best example is, in the 2007-8 timeframe, when I don't remember the exact year, maybe 9, when Apple came up with a phone that has no buttons, right? It was all touchscreen. So that is a huge rebellism in the design. So the conventional wisdom was all about, like phone with the buttons. And so just taking that buttons out of the phone was a huge statement, and that design was a rebel by far. So of course we are, we don't have anything of that rebellish right now, but in the coming time, the apps that we are going to put, we have got some pretty rebellish designs. And as any rebel would expect, you either get wiped out if you don't get it right, or if your app if your app proves the point and people understand it, which is one of the biggest thing. Like your rebellion, your rebellism has to be understood. Your design rebellism, if people get it, then your app can become really popular. And if your people don't get it, then it just doesn't go that way. But as a company, we have to take those choices, and we have to take those make those decisions that when to go rebel design. In fact, and that is one of the huge advantage that the startups have, that they can behave stupid, they can behave rebel, and nobody cares. Once you become a bigger company, then then it's actually more I don't know how to explain it, but it's more dangerous, or it's more difficult, quite frankly, to be a complete rebel in a bigger companies. And that is where the people like Apple's, the companies like Apple's get a lot of credit, because they have, despite having a legacy of 30-40 years in operation, they still had that courage to keep that young rebellism in them, and bring that products out there. Of course, they were at that time into exigency situation. If they would not have done that, they would get in trouble. And that is the point, when those things happen, right? Those are the points exactly when the innovation happens, or those are exactly the areas when things work. And that might work for them, and we hope that whatever rebellism we are going to try in our coming designs, they work for us.
Yeah, sure. I think the new design is also quite tempting that I've seen yours. So,
well, yeah, you're not seen anything on the rebel designs yet. I can tell you that. The rebel designs that we're gonna have is totally different. It's just gonna, they are very, very different. And
okay, we're waiting for that.
yeah. One of the example, like the Kia logo, right? Well, I also put that in the slide. There is like everyone. If you Google the Kia logo, there are 100 articles that talk about how stupid that logo is. They should have put the K and I looks like N, and it almost looks like KN versus KI. But who cares? They grab the attention. The eyes, like everybody's turning their eyes on just because of that logo, and of course because of the Telluride success, the Kia was able to again go from a mediocre brand car into today a premium brand. And that's the power of design. That is what I always tell my designers, that the designers have a power. It's a car at the end of the day. Think about it. You go from one place to other, and car has been redesigned and designed over last 100 years plus. But just to be able to, that's a part of the artist. And that is where I tell you, right, I wish I was an artist, because artists have that ability to, make something, the exact same thing, to look totally different at some stage. And how it happens, and that is what, I don't know that, to be honest with you, like what in artist's brain really brings that thing out, then what they eat in that morning to come up with that Kia logo. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
but it's amazing.
Honestly, I really like the Kia logo.
Yeah.
And I would have not bought a Kia car earlier with that 3 letters written KII, but now with that logo, I really love that logo. I can buy a Kia car now.
Exactly, right? And that is a sales, right? So you design something in such a way that is itself is a sale. So
they won a customer.
Exactly. Isn't that huge? So
yeah.
There is one more quote which I remember very specifically, and these are some of the quotes that we hear a lot of time. Like, design is how it looks. Design is not how it looks. Design is how it works. So this was one of the famous quote of Steve Jobs, and it's very I have been hearing this quote for a long time, but until recently I never really understood what he actually meant by that. And now I have started understanding, and that is a part of these people's greatness, right? Like what they say, it takes years for people like us to even understand what they're trying to say there, right? And even now, I don't know if I understood it fully, but what I understand now, the way what he was basically saying is that design is not just about how it looks, or how it kind of appears and feels. It's about how it works. So in other words, you create an application, whether it's a SaaS app or even whether it's a hardware or whatever it is, in your mind first, and that's the design. That's how it is going to work. And then when you actually implement it, that's where the physically, you're just putting it on the physical layer, but the design is where it has to be. You have to think through the whole ecosystem of how it is going to work in the design itself. And that's kind of design principle, or that kind of design philosophy, or that kind of design mindset is required to build the great apps. That is what he was basically trying to say. And now I think I get at least some part of it.
Yeah, really. I mean, Steve Jobs is the person who brought design into computers and the IT
Absolutely.
stuff, which
Absolutely.
were just boring black color designs, but he brought something which was like so tempting.
Absolutely. I mean, there is the biggest credit, to your point. The one man who gets the most credit of bringing art into technology is Steve Jobs. Period.
Yeah.
That's it. There is no debate on that. I can't think there can be any debate on that point.